Welcome everyone to episode 2 of the draft, but the first one of the NASCAR season, the real season. The Clash was fun. Chase Elliott crushed it, but I'm here again with Phil Eastman, Tino Patino. Um, Gentlemen, I know you're both excited, but Phil, we have to start out with this. Congratulations to your Eagles on winning the Super Bowl. So I'll kick it to you first. How are you doing tonight? Then we'll go to Tino. Then we'll get into Daytona.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I'm still on cloud nine, and it's kind of just reveling everything. We got the parade here on Friday downtown, so we're kind of in this like limbo state where just like everybody's just being nice to everyone, no matter where you go, and it's great. So yeah, cheering for sports teams. This is only the third championship that I've seen alive, and it feels unbelievable. So hopefully, I know everybody cheers for different teams. You get that experience sometime soon because it's the best. It really is, and to see them dominate the way they did was unreal. Stress-free Super Bowl win, so can't ask for anything better than that. So I appreciate you kicking to me. Very excited for Daytona. I hope to keep these great vibes that I've got going here this Sunday, and really excited for this show, man. I think we're going to get a lot of conversation about a lot of different drivers each week, and hopefully get some good bets in there as well. I think this is going to be a great way to kick off the season, so I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Awesome. I'm excited. I was rooting for your boys because they had beaten my Niners in 2 recent Super Bowls. So I was glad to see them go down. But Tino, how have you been, man? How have you been doing? It's been a couple weeks since we did the full season long draft. So how's things hanging, man?
I'm doing well. I'm super excited to be on here tonight and then throughout the season with you boys as well. I'm super locked in as well because this is the new format of the show. We got the boys back, some comments already popping up, which I'll be talking and bringing up throughout the show as we do. But I mean, with as the last NASCAR season played out to now be back here, I'm fired up. I thought last season was a great one. I think this one could be even better. And I love that we're starting off at Daytona 500. Of course, we're drafting. It's a drafting track. There's no better combo, and I'm really excited to see the guys that we're able to break down, the different teams we're able to go in depth with, data-wise, analysis-wise, and everything in between, because I feel like this show is going to be very unique with all those different aspects and the drivers that we're going to be able to talk about and make some money from as well.
Yeah, it'll be fun. The show is meant to be that exact thing, fun. We were gonna. The show was last year that we did was great. It was mostly about betting. It's pretty much the whole thing, NASCAR betting preview show. I didn't really want to do a show that's strictly betting there, where maybe we only talk about one or two guys. And because of the slim numbers that we get, we kind of ended up talking about the same guys in all the different segments. That wasn't the case necessarily 2 or 3 years ago, but as the numbers get slimmer and slimmer, it kind of turned into that. So this I thought was kind of a neat idea. A lot of people can tune in and listen to us talk about maybe their favorite driver on a team that might not have come up otherwise. So, as you see on the screen here, everybody watching, we have 11 teams listed with one wild card on the bottom. So it's a total of 12 picks. We're all going to pick one driver per team. We're going to use NASCAR official scoring. The winner will pick a charity. Win the race will donate to the charity. Real simple rules, meant to be fun. Before we move on to the next teams, we'll mention if we have any bets that pertain to the team we just talked to, and so on and so forth. So that being said, let's get into it. We'll start with a quick race preview each week. We're going to let Phil handle those. Phil, what do we got here for Daytona?
Well, I know that the normal folks that we talk to don't really need a race preview, but in case you're finding us and you're trying to get into the NASCAR world, trying to get into the fantasy, the gambling world, hopefully this helps you out. We've got the Daytona 500, the Super Bowl of NASCAR, as they call it, on Sunday, 2:30. It'll be on Fox and broken down into 3 stages: 65 lap stage 1, 65 lap stage 2, and 70 laps in stage 3 to give us 200 laps. It's a 2.5-mile super speedway track. And so for those who are newer, the reason that Daytona is so fun and so exciting and why people wait around for it all off season is because it's chaotic. Anybody really can win this race because of the drafting element to this racetrack. So it's a 2.5 miles tri-oval super speedway, high banked in the corners, 30-degree bank. It's going to be fast. It's going to be wild and a lot of action theoretically. So that's the race preview for this week. And I'll give you a little nugget, I guess. Maybe I'll try to do that each week. We haven't had a winner that has started at Daytona inside the top 10 in 4 races. So, we've got the way to qualify for this race is qualifying on Wednesday night. That's why we're doing this a day early. And then the duels set the order for the field. So keep your eyes peeled this week. A lot of action in Speed Week this week, but the winner has not started inside the top 10 in a little while.
Awesome. That's a great preview. I know that, like you said, most people listening are familiar with Daytona. They know about the chaos, but you never know. Sometimes we'll even get some new people in Discord that are like, hey, I haven't watched NASCAR in 20 years and I'm getting back into it. So, maybe they're a little rusty. Good to kind of catch up on things. So let's just jump right into it. Let's jump into the draft. Again, we're going to draft one driver per team. And it's okay if we have the same driver. If we go on to the next person, if it's the same one, if you have anything to add, go ahead and add it. Then we'll let the next guy make his pick. And before we move on to the next team, we'll talk about any bets we might have. We just had Phil do the preview, so I'm going to switch things up here. I'm going to bring up our draft board here, and we'll actually swing over. Let's let Tino lead this off with 2311, the first pick of the 2025 the draft season. Who are you taking on 2311 for the Daytona 500?
Man, wow, first pick. I'm honored to be in this situation here in Spot, and it's one that I've been looking forward to see who I'm going to draft here. It's been very important part for me, looking at all the guys on the board, but if I'm starting off at 2311, I got to go with Bubba Wallace. The reason he stands out to me in this one, and he's been on my radar for a bunch of super speedway races throughout the last few seasons, but since the next gen era specifically, he ranks 3rd in average finish amongst Daytona and Talladega. So those 2 drafting tracks specifically, canceling out Atlanta from this one here in that scenario. But even with that being the case, at Atlanta, Bubba's been hot, and I think when you look at his teammates as well, Tyler Reddick, he did win last year at Talladega, but going to stay away from him there. And then Riley Herbst as well. I think Herbst could actually get maybe not a win, but a top 10 finish, be up there in the mix. He's a great at super speedways, but Bubba's the clear option here, I feel like, when it comes to 2311.
Awesome. We'll go to Phil after, because I had Bubba as well. But there was one fun fact I noticed too. You mentioned his average finish and how great it's been. Lifetime at Daytona and Dega of drivers with over 10 cup races combined, he has the best average finish of anyone. So He does happen to find those finishes. And he's been good in the Toyota as well. We can mention a bet here too. He was 26-1 earlier in the week or last week or whenever the lines came out. And so myself and a couple of people took him at 26-1 on FanDuel. That line was just too far. We have shown a lot of value on that, according to our 20,000 sims we did on Win the Race. So 26-1 bet there as well. Phil, who do you have here from 2311?
Yeah, we're going to do a sweep across the board. Bubba is a guy that, from a gambling standpoint, I am very much a favor of doing the ladder on. My favorite bet of the week is Bubba Wallace for a top 10. The top 10 odds were basically nuked except for Bet Rivers. And they have him at plus 165 for a top 10. I put money in my account to take that bet and another one involving someone else from 2311, which we'll get to in a little bit. Yeah, Bubba Wallace, for all the reasons you said. I mean, it's fun to talk about the different metrics that we're using. Because Tino mentioned, a certain grouping in the next gen era. I'm looking at a number of different things, but average finish last 10 races at Daytona, he's 9.6. So clearly he's able to keep it clean. Another thing that I love to look at with Daytona is lead lap finishes. Who can stay alive? And he's tied for first with 7 lead lap finishes in the last 10. So this is in a format like this and a fantasy format, gambling format. Bubba Wallace is very, very consistent and usually reliable on a type of track that is pure hell. So I like this pick. The other option, Riley Hurst, I need to see more, from him coming up, finally getting this ride. Not sure what to do with him. Tyler Reddick is going to be the one that we're fading in a head-to-head matchup down the line when we get to someone. And I think Ryan might like it, so we'll see.
All right, awesome. That's cool. Well, we have the head-to-head probabilities on win the race, so we can pull that up and see what we think. All right, Phil, we're going to stick with you, and we're going to head to Front Row Motorsports. You get to go first here, and again, I'm curious to see who you'll have here. I think this is a very interesting one with a lot of movement within the team here. So let us know who you got.
So these are the teams where I think this show is going to be fun throughout the season. So Front Row, I think I might be on an island here, but I'm going to go with Zane Smith. Zane, he's back home driving that 38 car, just like he did in the trucks for the same team in the trucks. And what was surprising to me was seeing Zane had a rough go for, the last season or so. But if you look, he's got 6 starts at Daytona in the Cup Series. Excuse me. When you combine Talladega and Daytona, 6 starts, 3 of them were in the top 15, which I think is pretty solid, right? So you say, all right, that's something. All 3 of those came at Daytona. So when we get to Talladega, you throw him out the window. He's 3 for 3 finishing inside the top 15 and at this racetrack. So if I'm looking for somebody to just, keep it alive and get it there, now we're going to Front Row, which they've been great. You look at McDowell and Gilliland. This is not a knock on Gilliland. We'll see if you guys talk about him. I'll maybe pause and let you guys see who you have. But something to say about him as well. This is a good super speedway team. So now I think Zane's going to be coming home, getting the equipment that he deserves, where I think last year he was really throwing a bag of shit. So I'm excited to see what Zane Smith has to offer.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to go there, being the truck guy you are, and Zane going back to FRM here. Yeah, I had a good feeling you were going to do that. You had mentioned Gilliland, so I'll go ahead with mine. I am going to take Todd Gilliland here. And before I just forget, I apologize. I got to type these in as we go. Not drinking tonight. I got a Diet Coke, but this is just a lot to handle on the first show. So Todd Gilliland. Now, one thing about him is the qualifying. Like you said, Front Row has showed up ready to race. McDowell in 6 races last year as a member of Front Row. In the 6 drafting races, his average qualifying position was 1.17. That's just so stupid. And then Joey Logano and Todd Gilliland are tied for second best at 4.33. So the man just qualifying up front, and that probably ties right into this. In those races, he has the 6th best true average running position on drafting tracks last year. So yes, he is running up front. Doesn't really have the finishes to show for it. He's gotten caught up in a lot of crap. And you might say, yeah, well, that's what happens when you qualify up there. You kind of get into the mess. But what if he doesn't? He's at least running up there, bringing fast cars. If he can get a little luck to go his way, I think Gilliland's going to be in a place where he could even win this race. So give me Todd Gilliland for Front Row here. Tino, we will kick it to you.
Well, I'm loving this action from Front Row because we're going to have each driver from this team now on the board. I'm going Noah Gragson, and I think everything that you guys have said, I also agree with. I think this team is in poise for a great spot running in the Daytona 500. They are the super speedway team. We saw that being the case, I think, early on after Daytona at Atlanta last season with Todd Gilliland leading laps legitimately Like, he actually was up there charging hard. He was battling it out with Cindric. I know they were working with Team Penske, and that is also another huge factor in this one. And I believe the Ford help with good pushers like Noah Gragson. We saw him sit there, finish third in Talladega behind Brad Keselowski last year in the first race, ninth at Daytona in the 500 last year as well for Gragson. If I'm going to bet him, I'm looking at a top 10 number, plus 240 on Bet Rivers. And Phil, what you mentioned also about Zane Smith, he's plus 330 on FanDuel for a top 10 finish. These are odds that I'm actually finding myself liking. We don't really see that too much, I feel like, with the super speedways these days, especially for a top 10 market. These front row guys, I'd love to see finish inside the top 10, and I feel like they have the strength to do it with, you guys mentioned it, just staying there, being patient, and being able to finish strong at the end because they avoided some wrecks.
Yeah, man, I love that. We were, talking quickly. I don't know if you were on with us yet or not, but Phil and I mentioned very quickly before the show, are we going to have duplicate lineups on the first show? And the answer is no. We didn't make it through two teams, so that's pretty awesome. Mentioning bets, we I think it was Caesars that they kind of took all the qualifying lines down and then put them back up, but we ended up with Gilliland 25-1 to win the pole tomorrow night, Zane 30-1, and Gragson 60-1. So a lot of FRM love in the win the race community for tomorrow night, hoping that they keep that same speed they brought last year. It's kind of a mystery, who between Zane, he's front row's boy, or Gragson, who's got that McDowell power, or does just Gilliland have it? But then who's got Gilliland's power? It's like, we know two of them can be very fast. Can they bring three absolute rockets? I don't know. All right, let's jump to Hendrick. You guys got anything to add there for front row? Any other bets at all?
I'm gonna pause again, a nice teaser, and I'm gonna bring them right back up in this next segment.
Okay. I'll go ahead. I'll lead off Hendrick here because let me tell you, this one to me was one of the hardest ones to pick between these four guys. And that's the beauty of this show. Like, we can talk stats, we can talk data, we can talk whatever we want, value, anything. This one is more just like a gut for me, but he's also been really good. And I'm going to go with Chase Elliott here for Hendricks. And again, like, you can point to numbers from both William Byron and Alex Bowman in particular, who's been surviving nicely at Daytona, and pick them. And I would have really nothing bad to say about it. Larson's really the only one where I think, like, you could say, hey, dude's raced here over 20 times and he's got 5 top 10s and no top 5s. Coincidentally, I noticed today, and I tweeted out about it, he's the favorite on DraftKings to win this race, which I thought was very interesting. But I'll take Chase Elliott. I must trust what Greg and I are putting into the simulations. It's simulating the race 20,000 times, and it has Chase Elliott as the favorite amongst this group of 4. So for this one, I'm going to stick with what we have, and I want to really hear your guys' arguments for the other 3, or if you're sticking with Chase with me. So let's kick it to Phil. You just teased something. Phil, what do you got for Hendrick?
Well, I'll start by saying, let me know if I'm choppy, because I don't know if anything is wrong with my setup here, but I'm taking Alex Bowman, and Bowman to me is sneaky for an outright here for anyone who's looking for a longer shot. I'm going to be talking about Bowman on my show when when I record that later in the week, and I also like him head to head versus Todd Gilliland. So I was just teasing that, and I was saying, I like Todd, but here's the situation here in the breakdown. Todd Gilliland, I will be talking about likely at Atlanta. He's probably someone I'm going to take next week in that slot. Will I take him at Talladega? Yes. And the reason for that is in the last 8 super speedway races, Todd Gilliland has 2 top 10s. He's got 3 top 15s. All of that success came at Talladega. 6 races at Daytona, 0 top 20s. And I understand that the point that he's running up front, but he just can't finish races. And for me, head-to-head matchups, that's what I'm looking for. And he's going up against a guy who does finish races. He's got Alex Bowman, rather, 6 lead lap finishes in his last 10 races. And he's someone with a really solid, little sneaky 6th place average finish in the last 10 at Daytona. When you factor in Dega and Daytona, the last 8 super speedways, that's 2023 and 24, he's 3rd in average finish, 12.3. And so while I really love driver rating on a normal basis, like average finish is actually also pretty important when it comes to these super speedways, because if you've got a higher average finish, it's saying you're able to stay out of the chaos. So Bowman being sneaky, I like his consistency for the draft. Our rosters, I like consistent drivers, and so that's why I'm taking them. But I also am really enjoying this Bowman versus Gilliland matchup to fade Gilliland just for Daytona. And if he beats you, great, right? Because I'm planning on taking him in the next 2 super speedways. So let's get my boy some momentum. But history would tell me that he's going to struggle to get that finish, even if he leads, 199 laps.
Awesome stuff. So Tino, you gonna have someone different here too? Are we going different 2 teams in a row here? What do you got?
No one different than the drivers that are currently on the board for Hendrick Motorsports with you both now. The thing is, for me, deciding between Chase Elliott or Alex Bowman, because I had a lot of great thoughts in my head for Chase Elliott, 18-1 to win the race outright. Also, the average finishing position chart that I mentioned before in terms of the last super speedway races between Talladega and Daytona in the next gen era, Chase Elliott ranks 8th on that list. But who ranks first? Alex Bowman. Best average finish, like Phil mentioned there. He covered that all for Bowman. To me, that's why I'm going to go with Alex Bowman in this one. I was leaning Chase Elliott, but I think Bowman just having that 30-1 number to win outright from a betting standpoint really intrigues me a lot more. Chase Elliott, also good value for the driver he is and the capabilities he has on super speedways, being 18-1. But like Phil said, it comes to finishes and the results in these type of races. Bowman is always, I feel like, and the results show for it, a guy that can just be there at the end. I could see Chase Elliott leading, similar to a Ryan Blaney, and dominating this format style of racing, but sometimes when you're that aggressive, you get into the wall, their accident happens, you get involved in it, or you are the one that starts it. I want someone that can just be there at the end for me when it matters most.
That's awesome. I am surprised that no one had William Byron there. I really thought, maybe we're going to be split again. I was really between Elliott and Byron more than I was so with Bowman, and just went the Elliott route. So that's interesting. I cannot wait to see how it plays out. Tino, let's stick with you and just head right into our Joe Gibbs team here. Denny Hamlin, Chris Bell, Ty Gibbs, and the newcomer, Chase Briscoe, who I know you love. Who you got here for Joe Gibbs Racing?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm excited for this one. And one last thing I'll say back to Hendrick for one last second would be no William Byron for me because I can't see the back-to-back happening. It's possible, but that's why I laid off him specifically, and then we know Larson there. But
Greg and I talked about that earlier today because his number on Caesars does show value in the Sims, and maybe it's stupid for not betting it because of that reason, but I'm not betting it for that reason. It's like I think that yes, that's the odds if he didn't win last year, but I feel like because he won last year, I don't know, like they're running the same race. Like I probably shouldn't think like that, but I know exactly what you're saying. I just can't bring myself to do it because I can't see him going back to back.
yeah, exactly. So as we look towards JGR now, though, these Toyotas, they've been fast on super speedways. Obviously, Denny Hamlin's won a bunch of these races. I feel like he is the no-brainer pick, but I'm not going no-brainer. I got to stick with my gut feeling. And this one's a crazy one. It's Chase Briscoe. I just feel like MTJ's been trying to win at Daytona. He'll be there potentially in the race in the 56, but we've been betting on MTJ and holding out on the 19 car for so long. Well, what kind of storyline would it be for Chase Briscoe to hop in the car, his first ride, Daytona 500? This equipment that he's running in is the best in his career, no doubt. He's overperformed so many times. Now, I'm not saying he's the best super speedway driver by any means, but if we're looking for storylines in this one, the 19 car getting back to victory lane at the Daytona 500, I like that more. than picking a Denny Hamlin here, because Denny can be up front leading laps in this one. He's going to, but it hasn't worked out for him. And honestly, I think it's because he's won so many times here. No one wants to go with him, or people do want to draft with him, and he ultimately gets into trouble there and hasn't been able to get the results that he had for the 4 to 5 year span that he was winning these races consecutively in a row. So give me Chase Briscoe. I think he can make some noise. Daytona 500 early on, new team.
Awesome. I mean, I had that feeling with Zane Smith and Phil. I kind of knew you were going Briscoe there. That's your boy this year, and I respect it. I mean, I'm so excited to see what he can do with his new team. I saw him say, earlier today. At least I saw it quoted earlier today. I don't know when he said it in an interview, but that if he just doesn't, something along the lines of, if he doesn't perform now, I mean, that's it. Like the bar has been raised. He's there. It's now or never. Like, prove you deserve to be there. And so, we all know his talent. I hope he can really prove his worth. Phil, let's go to you. Joe Gibbs, who you got?
Yeah, so I like the Briscoe aggressiveness, and I'm a big fan of Briscoe this year as a whole, but I'm going to avoid Chase in this race, just because the 19 car, hasn't really helped me in Daytona. It's not even like some tracks where it's like, oh, I can trust James Small. Like, I can't. So we'll see there. But I'm going to go with, and we mentioned like going back to back, like didn't Denny do that a few times in a row at the 500? So, but I'm still not going to take
back to back like not long ago either.
It was
like 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago,
right before COVID or something.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still not going to take him either. I'm taking the guy who's really stepping up, because if you look at Denny's history since that like 2021 season, like he really hasn't had a top 15 finish, I think. So I'm going to go with the guy who has back-to-back top threes at this racetrack, and that's Christopher Bell. Someone that I've just been really impressed with, seeing him come alive in the last 10 races at Daytona, 3 top 5s and 6 top 20s. We can lower the bar with Daytona. 6 top 20s in 10 races. Christopher Bell, again, looking for somebody who's been more consistent. A couple of years ago, I don't think I would have been on this. There have been times in the past, since I've been doing my podcast, where I've faded Christopher Bell on super speedways. I think we got to change with the times and actually call out when somebody's improving. So I'm going to go with that 20 car and see what he can do for me.
Awesome. I love it. I mean, you can't argue that. This is about survival. The dude survives. We're going to be all different here again, because I'm going to go with Denny. And just because I don't think that I know the racing has changed. And so maybe that's kind of taken Denny's spark out of this, I guess. I don't know. But it's not like he forgot how to race on these tracks. He's just had some bad luck. If you look inside the drafting races last year of this Joe Gibbs team, he's running inside the top 10 more often, over 30% of his laps, more often than anyone else on his team, even Bell. Bell's just getting the finishes. And if you look at the team Denny owns, I mean, Bubba's getting the finishes, and Reddick won at Dega or wherever he won. Yeah. So, I mean, at some point, something's got to give. Like, he can't just keep having these terrible finishes when he's this talented. I also think he enters this year. I mean, maybe the FedEx thing, that's more of like a team thing. I don't think that's really going to affect him as much as like the whole lawsuit thing did last year, where it seemed he kind of fell off at the end of the year there. I think he might come back here and just be ready to rip. I mean, he was great at the Clash. I know that's the Clash. It's nothing like this, but it's just nice to see him kind of come back in. He sounds like he's in a good headspace when you listen to his podcast and things like that. I just think he might be back. So give me Denny here. I kind of like that we have 3 different drivers again. That's going to make the scoring a lot of fun for us. And then I can head right into the next pick if you guys are cool with that.
Oh, I did want to bring up some of the comments we got going on here as well. Brian, appreciate you joining us as well. My brother here, Brian, saying Denny has gotten soft in his old age at the super speedways in the Gen 7 era. And It's true. I mean, it's either he's soft from that standpoint, or he's just been in a wreck every single time. I remember the time, it was last year when he was riding around in the back. I believe it was Atlanta, just to survive and not get in a wreck, and that still ended up getting him involved in one. And I think that's been the issue as well. We do have to note, though, Denny Hamlin with his back-to-back Daytona 500s, that was in 2019 and 2020. So, hey, maybe he can turn some things around since he does have that history. Also got a shout-out to Miami Mike 91 being in the chat as well. He likes Chase Briscoe in this one, so that's good to see. I know all the brothers and boyos out there have been talking about Chase Briscoe, but also agreeing about Denny Hamlin there as well. I will say, too, before we move on to the next team, I'm putting down the Christopher Bell outright winner bet. I know I didn't pick him and I had the opportunity to do so, but 26-1 with everything Phil mentioned with C. Bell, those top threes, he's a driver that stays in it. Buscher's another one. He's coming up soon or down the list there, but there's just these select group of guys that are always there in the top 10, top 5 at these super speedway races with a chance to win. If Christopher Bell can have the help there at the end, I think that's the reason why he hasn't been able to win or get past the top 3 finish in this one, because there's Toyotas, right? When it comes to sample size, they're the least amount in the field. When a big wreck happens, it takes out most of his help and pushers to be there at the end. We'll see. Maybe that 2311 extra car of Riley Herbst this year can be up there hanging with them, but I definitely like Christopher Bell in this one as well.
No, that's awesome. Thanks for mentioning that. I'd forgotten to talk about any bets we might have, so I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, the way he's finishing, like you said, 26-1, that's a long number. I don't know where we had him. We would not have that as value in the Sims, but everything you said, it all makes sense. And the Denny thing too about his age. I know Greg Mathern to win the race. He's super against betting these older guys at Daytona. Anyone over 40 years old, he's against it. Denny's 44 years old now. So I don't know, man. We'll see. I like that we have different teams. We'll have to see how the scoring plays out. I kind of did a mixed bag of those survival guys and then the gut type plays. And that's kind of what we'll head into right now with Colleague. I'm going to be on AJ Allmendinger here. And now he's a guy getting these finishes. His last Daytona 500 finishes, 6th, 10th, 3rd. He's knocking on the door, has a ton of experience. He's got 43 races at Daytona and Talladega with only 8 DNFs in those races. That's crazy for this style race. Surviving is the name of the game. He's got, in 22 Daytona races, only 2 DNFs. So I'm either jinxing him horribly here or picking one of these guys that you've talked about that just finds a way to survive and be kind of hanging around at the end. So give me AJ Allmendinger here. It's a nice mix in my picks here because I want some guys that might hang around the mid to back pack and then be there at the end and survive, with a mix of guys I think could run up front. So I'm going to go with AJ. Who do you guys got here? Let's go, Phil. Who do you got for Colleague here?
Yeah, it's AJ, and it's not close. I know I have some buddies out there. Shout out to Chris from the Flag Hunting. He always lets me know when I'm not taking Ty Dillon, because I used to take Ty Dillon on super speedways like, the sun would rise. But AJ Allmendinger, Brian just mentioned placements. I mean, plus 275 on Bet Rivers for a top 10. I mean, that's something that I have as a lean on my podcast for my notes for that, because of what you just mentioned. I mean, 3 Daytona starts, 2 top 10s, 13.7 average finish. That's 5th in the series for anyone who has, 3 or more races. So he's someone that survives. And how did Colleague build their team? AJ Allmendinger being good on super speedways and good at road courses. So that's how they built the team. I like going to their bread and butter here, AJ, and it's not even close to me.
Awesome. Tino, are we going to make it a clean sweep here? Who you got?
I got to show my respects to the Dinger here. And honestly, not too much to add, because if I were to throw anything else in the mix, it'd just be talking down on Ty Dillon. I don't want to do that. No need to do that. I just think AJ Allmendinger more proven, and he hates his style of racing. I feel like every interview after Daytona, Talladega, he's like, "Oh, I don't like racing here," but he's coming home with a top 10 finish. He's one of those guys that we keep mentioning that are there at the end with a clean car despite everything that goes on. And especially too, I feel like he'll probably be in the back of the pack, maybe staying patient there. So got to be AJ Allmendinger. Just don't know what Ty Dillon's going to do, but first time being back in a Cup car, at least consistently this season. Got to be AJ, I think.
Awesome. I know Phil had mentioned a play there. I have no bets colleague related as of now. Does anyone else have anything they want to add before we head on to Legacy?
I would just say keep your eyes peeled for AJ in a head-to-head matchup, right? If they're disrespecting him and putting him up against somebody that stinks because he's lower level, take advantage of that. So that's something that I would just put out there. I haven't seen anything yet, but I got my eyes peeled.
All right, awesome. Phil, why don't you lead us then right into Legacy here and let us know who you got for that team?
Yeah, for Legacy, I am going this. I'll be shocked if this isn't a clean sweep too, boys. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going with Eric Jones. I think he's the obvious answer for me. Super speedways. There's been a time where he was just a really good shot to win. I still think if you're into lottery tickets, I mean, let's see, he's like 55-1. But last 10 races at Daytona, he's got 1 top 10, 2 top 15s. But here's the kicker: 6 top 20s. So again, someone who's able to just kind of survive and advance type of deal, even in the shit boxes that he's been in. So I'll go with Eric Jones on this one. See if he can beat me. I want to know who you guys think.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'll stick with Eric Jones here as well. Everything you just said, his best finishes on super speedways are at Daytona in his career in a Toyota. Hoping that these changes that they made inside their organization will just kind of, I think and I hope, and maybe I'm just, I want to be more optimistic this year. I was tweeting about that like after the Clash, was being a little pessimistic before it, and then it ended up being awesome. So let's just change the tune here, be a little more optimistic. I'm hoping Legacy comes with a lot more speed this year, because I do think that him and JHN could make not some noise necessarily, but at least get up there, start running top 15 or something like that every now and then. I feel like, when the team was first created, they've just kind of gone downhill. And I think the changes that they made now could kind of bring them back and find some more speed. So hopefully that happens. Got to stick with Eric Jones here. Like you said, has been a above average drafting racer in his career. Tino, who you got?
Yeah, it's going to be a clean sweep here, boys. If it wasn't, I'd need you guys to check my temperature, because it's got to be Eric Jones, especially compared to John Hunter and what we've seen out of him. I do believe, like you guys are saying, there's a lot of potential with this team. With Legacy specifically heading into this year, I got a big circle around them to see how their cars are able to perform. I do care about results, but last year they were last, bottom of the pack, every single racetrack, it seemed like. So I need them to get off to a top 10 finish here, at least one of the cars, and let's continue to see some improvement, because I feel like with them not being aligned with JGR or any of the major Toyota groups out there, it's hurt them a lot, especially when we go to these super speedways and you're looking for a drafting partner, and well, the 2311 guys are with the JGR guys, and then you got 2 or 3 legacy cars out there trying to make something happen. I feel like that's the hard part. I will also say Phil mentioned 6 top 20 finishes for Eric Jones, 5 of them top 10s. So Eric Jones at Daytona and Talladega, at least in this next gen era, like I've been mentioning, able to get a top 10 finish. If I were to bet that, or at least mention it for a bet, plus 240 on Bet Rivers, I say those odds are fair, but maybe not something I'd be willing to take just yet, based on how Legacy's been performing overall.
Legacy,
perfect.
Legacy, I think we're all hoping turns around, because Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek are 2 really good race car drivers, and it's a shame what's happening to them with this equipment. So I hope to see them better.
Yeah, totally agree. Jones is definitely talented. I mean, that's a dude, you put him in JGR stuff and he's winning races, and hopefully for all of our sakes and for Tino's sake, especially, Briscoe gets it going and wins even more races there with JGR as well. Any legacy bets then, boys? I have none.
No.
Nah. All right, so here's where we might get a little different. Let's go to Penske because this, I feel like, you take all three, take a three-sided coin and flip it. You can't go wrong here. I will start, and I will go with Austin Cindric. He's running too great here and on drafters to not get a great finish again, and we've seen him get a great finish here. I actually had a bet on that was when betting first became legal in New York, and won that Cindric Daytona bet. Felt really good. Trying to get it back. And so just talk bets, early on in Penske here. I do have a bet on Cindric to win. We took him 25-1 when that opened. And then the Sims, we have him fair around between 11 and 12-1 in the 20,000 that we ran. So I like that value there. He's just got to finish. That's all. I mean, he's running up front all the time, along with all the Penske boys. If we look at my true performance, he leads in that. He's the only driver to have a true average running position on drafting tracks last year at a position less than 10. He was like 8 something. So he's always running up front, just has to survive. Give me Cindric. Curious to see what you guys have here. I think we might be a little split on this one. But we also have the wild card later, teaser. So who you guys got? Let's jump to Phil. Who you got here?
Well, I'm going with Ryan Blaney as my pick. Chalk, but for a reason. Last 10 at Daytona, he's got a win, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s. It's a 50% hit rate for, a really good finish. And, Ryan from iFantasy Racing posted a nice little thread about him, or a tweet about him with his finishes, where like he's had some rough finishes as of late, but he's a guy in a team that just battles. Like, they've crashed and come back and crashed and come back, and like they can still manage and salvage. Like, they're very good at salvaging like a 15th place finish if they wreck a couple times. So as long as he doesn't get swept up in the big one, as the tweet, the main point of the tweet was really there, he's a dog. Now, I will tell you this, the bet that I was alluding to earlier, Bet Rivers has Austin Cindric head-to-head against Tyler Reddick, -114 apiece. Give me Austin Cindric until the cows come home. I put money into my account for that one. Ryan, I mean, you have Cindric listed on your pre-race ranking, pre-qualifying ranks as number 1. Reddick is 17th. Like, this should be value on the sim. This doesn't make sense as a matchup. Cindric is able to survive. And I'm going to talk about this one on the podcast as well, but I'll give it away here. I mean, 5-2 head-to-head in 7 races together on this track. And the one victory for Reddick, he finished second, and Cindric finished third. So like the margin of victory is dominated by Cindric, right? It's not getting good finishes for Reddick. So I really like that head-to-head matchup. And I know head-to-head matchups are not everybody's favorite thing on super speedways because of the big one, but I am a fan, so that's why I'm calling them out.
Well, yeah, there's always an asterisk next to it. Got to just not get caught up in the crap. We do have that fair at -164 for what it's worth. Again, it's 20,000 sims. It's a drafting race. I mean, we think we account for everything, but you never can. So, but yes, correct value on that bet. Tino, who you got here for Penske?
This one, I got to stick with Phil and go with Ryan Blaney here. Joey Logano intrigued me, as did Austin Cindric. Definitely looking at that Austin Cindric number and loving what you got there in terms of an outright winner and everything like that you said, Ryan. But for Ryan Blaney specifically here, everything that Phil said, and the point that I'm really stuck on is it's taking me a little bit harder, at least it has throughout Ryan Blaney's career here, to bet on him to win the Daytona 500. Every other super speedway race, I'm like, okay, yes. But I haven't bet the Daytona 500 just yet, and I feel like it's the perfect time. We talked about Ryan Blaney a lot last year, and the main point that I brought up when I had a gut feeling he would win was the week prior, the race prior, maybe last week or the week before that. If they had a bad stretch of races or just had a bad finish when they could have had a good one, or for instance at Homestead when he gets passed for the win from Tyler Reddick, I know that dog in Ryan Blaney is going to come out the next race and either get the win or be in contention for it. He lost at Homestead, wins at Martinsville. He had a struggle race at Texas a couple years back, wins at Talladega. It is just the theme for Ryan Blaney. He loses the championship. He has a whole offseason to think about it. I think he comes out aggressive, dominates this race, could potentially win. And he's a driver that's favorited to win this race odds-wise for an outright winner. I'd still put my money down there personally because although I don't like the odds, I like Ryan Blaney that much to win this one.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, listen, we can make arguments for all three of these Penske guys to go out there and win this race on Sunday. It's they've just been unreal. The Fords have been unreal. And maybe that's teasing something a little later as well. Fords have been unreal on these drafting tracks. But I think we mentioned all our bets there. Do you got anything else you want to mention, or is this now a good time to maybe mention something, Phil? It's up to you guys, or we can move on to RCR.
No, I don't have anything else for them.
Okay,
I'm good with RCR as well.
Are you betting Ford to win the race? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was. Yes, Ford is my pick.
I don't know. I don't know if I was clear at all. I don't know. I've only had one Diet Coke.
Yeah, my bad. I love Ford this week. I mean, they just work so well together on these super speedway tracks. And when I'm looking at the board, I'll tell you what, like every driver, every Ford driver stands out to me as like a guy like, yeah, I could take him to win. I could take him to win. So to me, I'd rather throw a Ford bet down that I feel comfortable with losing and roll with it, because the Ford team as a whole, I think, is stacked. Like even when you dip down to like the front row guys, like I wouldn't be shocked if I saw those guys win. So, and we're coming up on another big one in a second. So Penske's obviously a lead dog, but in a couple rounds here, we got some more as well.
All right, sweet. Then let's do this. We'll head on to RCR. We're going to let Tino kick off RCR, and then when we get to RFK, Phil, you're going to be on the board first then. So,
Love it.
Tino, go ahead and let us know who you're taking for Richard Childress here.
Well, it's a driver who, after 20 years of trying, could be Kyle Busch getting it done here for the Daytona 500. I feel like this one is another easy pick, no offense to Austin Dillon or anything like that, but with the season Kyle Busch had last year, gonna want to be aggressive, and him being aggressive at Daytona 500s has put him in position to win these races. It was only a couple years ago when Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won, where if the race did not go to overtime, Kyle Busch wins it. That's plain and simple. So I think he's run so well, not only just at Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, he's been there. So I think no matter what kind of super speedway it is we go to, the A car always steps up. It would help if Austin Dillon's able to, stay in the mix with him, which I will give the benefit of doubt. I could see happening. Those two cars, when they're both dialed in at the same time, they're able to really push through the pack very smoothly together. Kyle Busch in this one, I know he's a favorite to win outright and stuff like that odds-wise, but still, I think, wouldn't it be just such a great storyline to see Kyle Busch win in this type of race after the season he had not winning last year? I'm sticking with the storylines, like I mentioned for Chase Briscoe. Kyle Busch is another driver I can see fitting that bill there.
Dude, that is awesome, because that's who I'm taking too. I'm taking Kyle Busch, and I really want to see it. The fan in me wants to see Kyle Busch get it done. So like, I like to bet for fun at Daytona. Of course you want to win when you bet, but I'm going to be drinking some beers that day. I'm going to be throwing some bets down. I want it to be fun. Kyle Busch still shows value at 14-1. I bet him when he was 14-1. I don't want to miss out on it. I guess that's my. Yes, I show value in the Sims. Yes, he's our favorite at between 10 and 11-1 to win. So it's not a horrible bet at 14, but I just don't want to miss it. This is one where it's just like my heart's in it as well. So give me Kyle Busch. One fun stat, since he's joined RCR, he's led laps in every Daytona and Talladega race. He won at Talladega, like you said. He's finished second the last time we saw him here at Daytona. And between that and the 20,000 Sims saying he's the favorite, I have to go with it. So my heart and the numbers align here. Phil, who you got for RCR?
It's Kyle Busch. I mean, nothing more I can say other than like I just can't trust I can't trust Austin Dillon. Like there's nothing that he does for me here. I was trying to find stats to be able to make this work, and I can't. So maybe when I get drunk, I'll throw a little sympathy bet his way. But no, man, it's Kyle Busch for all of those good reasons that you guys put out there.
Good. Don't give him any more effort, because when we went to Bristol, I saw kids trying to give him hats to sign, and he said no. So he doesn't give the effort. You don't give the effort either.
Hate to
We
hear
don't
that.
do that. So yeah,
That's
it's a
a tough
two-way
call
street.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we got any other bets? I know I said I bet him to win. You guys got any RCR bets at all here?
I'm definitely on him to win for Kyle Busch. One other thing I did want to mention with that is we look at him being the favorite, right? Sometimes being the favorite at a super speedway race, Daytona 500 like this, would lean me in the other direction. But with Kyle Busch being the favorite at Daytona, like you mentioned, and he finished second last year, right before the playoffs, with all that, having a win to get in, and he still performed. That's why, despite him being the favorite here once again, and what everything being said on wintherace.info with him being, the top dog in all the ranks as well, that's why I still feel confident in Kyle Busch despite him being the favorite.
All right, awesome. And if you're DraftKings, you have Kyle Larson as the favorite, so you don't know much anyways.
Don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, all right, let's go to RFK here. And Phil had teased something a little earlier, so we're gonna let you lead this one off, Phil. Who is your RFK pick for Daytona?
Chris Buescher is my pick, and to me, it's for good reason. I mean, but it's also fun because, like I said about these Ford guys, like Blaney or Logano or Cindric, Buescher, Keselowski, like they're all there. So that's what led me to drive towards taking Ford as a manufacturer. But Buescher, man, he is someone that 10 races at Daytona, he's got a victory, tied for the most top fives with 4 top fives, has the most top 10s with 6 top 10 finishes in the last 10 races and 8 top 20s. He's got 7 lead lap finishes. That's tied with Elliott and Wallace for the most. So it's just to me a layup. This is a driver that you will see up front. I'm sure you'll see Keselowski up there as well. These guys like to be up there with Blaney, with Logano leading the way, with Gillen. Like these are the guys who like being up front. So as long as things kind of go their way, which is that's a dumb statement to say. It's like a Tom Brady analysis. But Buescher has been able to make things go his way recently. So to me, Buescher top 10 for a bet, top 10 at plus 135 on Bet Rivers. I really like that. So really good stuff there. And you see the stat there by Brian. So thank you for that little hat tip there to you. Even better, man. So Buescher, if you're new to the fantasy world or gambling, I think Buescher has to be on your card in one way, shape, or form.
Well, yeah, I got a couple fun facts about Buescher too. I'll just go ahead and say Buescher is going to be my pick as well. I'll type him in here and then give you some fun facts if I can make my fat fingers work the right way. So here we go. Buescher. This is no knock on Keselowski, obviously, but we're picking between this team here, and I don't think we're counting Priest when we're thinking about the guys we're picking from RFK here. So not like I think Priest would be bad either, but he's not Brad or Buescher on a drafting track. So Brad's 10 best finishes on large drafting tracks are 8 of those finishes out of the top 10 are Talladega, where Buescher, his top 10 best finishes on large drafting tracks, 7 out of the 10 are at Daytona. So there's like this Daytona Talladega split here where Brad's doing better at Dega, Buescher's doing better at Daytona. And Buescher at Daytona is a whole beast on itself because of all drivers who have raced at least 15 times at Daytona, Buescher is the only driver with a higher top 10 finish percentage lifetime than Jimmy Johnson. The only one. So, yes, you mentioned the top 10. I mean, this guy. Now, perhaps like I could just be murdering this guy right now and like he is due to wreck out of this race, but he's not. He's surviving. Hopefully he can keep it going. But yes, the only one with a top 10 finish in 15 races at Daytona is a lot. That's a lot of Daytona races. So pretty large sample size there to have such a high top 10 percentage. So go ahead, Tino. Who do you got here for RFK?
It's got to be another clean sweep for Chris Buescher here. And you guys said a lot of important analysis and stats and data that I'm even more solidified Chris Buescher. But one thing that I want to mention, Ryan Preece in that RFK car at super speedways, I think is going to play a huge factor. I really do. We see Brad Keselowski and how dominant he is as a pusher, how aggressive he is, just plowing through cars at these super speedway tracks, for better or for worse. Ryan Preece, I think, is bought in with that same mentality. Wherever the 17 and the 6 are going to go, he will just be pushing them throughout this entire race. He will be the third guy in line. Now, why is this also important? Well, if a wreck happens and takes out Brad or takes out Buescher, now Preece is also locked in, if he avoids the wreck, to continue to push those guys and bring them up towards the front. I think that's why that third car and Preece is going to be huge for them. And I also think he just has a don't care mentality. I see him with a chip on his shoulder. I don't know how he's going to perform throughout the entire season in that 60 car. When it comes to these drafting races, expect him to be locked in as Brad is to Buescher, and they're just going to soar through the field. I could see him being in the mix just by being a great pusher in this one.
Yeah, I mean, what better teammates to work with there than Brad and Buescher? So yeah, that's why I didn't want to like fully dismiss him when I did dismiss him, but I think for our purpose here, we were looking between the big dogs. So we talked bets for RFK. We did take Buescher 25-1 to win the race. We have it fair, between 17 and 18. So thought that was a good number there. You guys have anything on RFK here for this race?
Nothing else. No, I mean, I'm also not discounting Preece. I'm trying to work on a bet for him on the podcast as well. Just don't really have everything together to give it out right here, but Preece is sneaky, and Brian posting that, Preece finishing position under 21.5. That's interesting to me, man. I can tell you that. So yeah, Preece joining the super speedway crew. These guys know what they're doing on these tracks, obviously. And Buescher, doesn't that make you like really interested in his season? Like, he's so good at these tracks. He's so good at road courses. If they are just worth a damn on the intermediates, like, he's going to be a really a big threat. So yeah, I'm high on them.
I think
Awesome.
Preece makes it into the top 10 because of Chris Buescher or Brad Keselowski. That, like, he will pull them in. Yeah, with how those guys have, what was it, 3 or 4 top 10s between the two, or top 5s rather, either one. I just, at these recent super speedway races, if Brad or Buescher's going to be there, I think Preece comes along with them. I love what Brian said as well in the chat.
Well, the other Fords too, like if Fords in general just decide to work together. I mean, they've just been so good here. Um, yeah, I'm curious to see how Priest does. It'll be a lot of fun to watch him throughout the season. I'm gonna jump to Spire here, and I'll do my pick first, and I'm gonna pick Michael McDowell. Now, this might seem like an obvious pick just because of what he did last year, but that's not really why I'm picking him at all here. If you just take out what he did last year, McDowell has been a great drafting driver at Daytona throughout his career without qualifying up front. Actually, qualifying up front has kind of hurt him as far as the finishes go. So, and that's kind of the mixed bag here I'm going with. I have some guys I think can qualify up front, and if they survive, great. Then I have my guys who I don't think will qualify very well and can be there at the end because they have that experience here. So McDowell has finished top 10 at Daytona in 30% of his races, and he's got a large sample size. So that's like, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's like top 10, top 10 percentage at Daytona. So he can survive. He doesn't need to qualify up front. I'd actually prefer that he didn't for his, this team that he's on now, the Spire team. We've seen Spire have some great runs at these larger super speedways without qualifying up there. And I think McDowell kind of fits that bill perfectly. So give me McDowell, not because of what he did with front row, but for the opposite reason here. I think McDowell can survive and get a good finish here. Who do you? Let's jump to Phil. Phil, why don't you go to Spire here? Who's your pick?
Yeah, I hate that you took McDowell because I wanted him, but now I kind of feel like I need to go somewhere else here. So I'll take Carson Hocevar. He finished 11th here in the summer race, and that was backing up a dead last finish in the 500 last year. So I'm high on Carson Hocevar, man. Like he I think is going to be a decent threat this year. And maybe
I picked him in our season-long draft, so I'm with you there.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can say from a statistical standpoint to try to sway anybody to take Carson Hocevar in a fantasy situation unless his value is like really good. But I think that this team is built for these types of tracks. I think Carson has some good ability. Obviously, he proved it last year in 11th place finish. So he didn't let a dead last finish bother him. And we see Miami like saying it's the Chili's car. I did see that. I thought that was for Justin Haley though. But I guess if it's Hocevar, even better. So love a good sponsor.
See that outfit he was wearing?
Yeah, it was fantastic. McDowell, I think he's a great pick. I'm scoping, trying to find ways to play McDowell on my betting card. I mean, I haven't played him in anything just yet. Maybe throwing in like an outright, but he was somebody that I had, like, my friends and I, we have a phrase for when you're trying to seem like you were onto something way before everyone. We had this guy in high school. He used to be like, "Yo, dog, I had those shoes like way before everybody else." So we call it yo dogging. Like if you yo dog someone, it's like you're trying to be like, "I had that shit." I yo dog everyone with Michael McDowell. I was on to McDowell before he won the 500, and now it's like, oh, now he's the hot shit. So I hit that bet and felt good about it, but now it's like he's too popular. So that's why I kind of like, and with you taking McDowell right there, I was like, I want to be a little different here and go with Hocevar.
I like it. I'm surprised that Hocevar was your pick there. I thought when you were going to go different, you were going to go to their other member there. But let's see. We can leave that for Tino. Tino, who do you have here for Spire?
Boys. This is how I win. Because, yo, dog, let me take Justin Haley. This is a perfect spot for Justin Haley. He outperformed in his equipment so well last year, he gets promoted to go back to Spire, the team he was originally with, which I will mention he has a Daytona win, not a 500 win, but it was a rain-shortened win. I don't care. He loves these super speedways. Before there was Austin Hill in the Xfinity Series dominating all of the super speedways, it was Justin Haley. I believe it's 4 super speedway wins in the Xfinity Series. To me, yeah, sure, may not translate to Cup at all, but he just knows how to run these types of tracks. He was doing it very well at Daytona, the second race with Rick Ware Racing. And to me, just the fact that he was able to be up there leading laps, contending for the race win, is why I love Justin Haley so much in this one. Also, let's take a look back at the 7 car last year. Corey LaJoie was in it, and he had a shot to win the Daytona 500. I think Corey LaJoie is a great super speedway driver. I think Justin Haley has an opportunity to be better. And I truly believe the McDowell speed that he has at super speedways could help Haley if he needs it in any way. But Justin Haley's my guy. I drafted him on my season-long team, and this is why. And this is how I win, I believe, this week. And I got him in a couple bets as well, if you want to hear him.
Yeah, let's hear those bets. Rip them off.
All right. So my favorite one that I got is Justin Haley in a matchup against Ty Dillon. I believe this one's on Bet Rivers. They're both even at -114, but we talked about Ty Dillon earlier. No one's on him. No one's high on him or has any good expectations. So to me, I also think Justin Haley has a great shot at a top 10 finish. Those can correlate for me. I'm picking Haley to beat Ty Dillon at -114 and a top 10 finish at +270. I think if he's going to beat Ty Dillon, he'll definitely have a great shot at a top 10 finish as well. Or at the very least, he'll come home the winner of that matchup. I can see Justin Haley leading laps. I believe Bet Rivers. Let me check again for you here on the Action Network. But that was one that I was surprised to see, that matchup.
Oh, my God. Give me that all. Hook that to my veins. Like, absolutely, I'll be telling that.
Awesome. And I'm confirming, yep, Bet Rivers -114, Justin Haley versus Ty Dillon. Yeah, that could be a squad ride. That could be a squad ride.
So So here's the thing, and I'm totally with it. We have that as value, but barely. We have minus 118 is fair, so it's right there. If you like it, take it, whatever. Everyone's got to know. You take head-to-head bets at Daytona with a grain of salt. You take it for fun. These are fun bets. You can't bet the house on these things because let me just give you one example. Give you one example. Lifetime, and I'll ask you both. What do you think the head-to-head record is at Daytona? William Byron versus BJ McLeod. They've raced each other 10 times at Daytona. 10. What do you think the record is?
I'm gonna say 7-3 for BJ.
I was gonna go 6. I was gonna go 6-4, BJ.
BJ's 8-2 in that matchup.
Yeah.
So this is the guy who won the Daytona 500 last year.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's all I'll say. Just be careful with these head-to-head matchups on these super speedways, especially Daytona. Greg did some great Daytona versus Talladega stuff too to show Daytona being much more volatile and just crazy. Like it's got 11 to 12% more DNFs and wrecks and crap going on. So just be careful. I just wanted to say that, my piece there. But I like the thing is like I keep saying, and I've actually tweeted this out, I'm not going to have any head-to-head bets. But as we get closer to Sunday, it gets harder and harder and harder and harder. I might have to just text you guys and just slap me through a text message or something. Tell me not to do it. But
Don't
Or tell
text
you
me.
to do it.
Don't text me.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to it.
I'm gonna tell you to do it.
any other Spire bets here? No? Okay.
Nothing for me.
Let's head it right into Trackhouse. And Tino, why don't you lead off Trackhouse here?
Okay, so Trackhouse is an interesting one for me. When I think Trackhouse, the first driver that comes to my mind is Ross Chastain. But I was there in person when he was driving that 77 car and he just went below the apron, shot back up across the track, and just took out half the field because of that aggressiveness. Same thing happens last year. Definitely in a different type of wreck, but he was trying to be aggressive, fit through a hole that wasn't necessarily there yet, takes himself out once again. Ross Chastain and his aggressiveness, he's there in the positions he may need to be in, but I can't pick him because of that. Daniel Suarez would be the obvious answer, I feel like, in this one, based off of his super speedway history, won at Atlanta. But it wouldn't be any fun if I didn't go with SVG in this one. That's right. I picked him. No. I picked him on my season-long team. I'm standing behind him 10 toes down. I have no research, no analysis, no data to back up SVG at a super speedway. But wouldn't it be something if he raced really well at the Clash last weekend and took it one step further with a top 10 finish, top 15 at a super speedway? I think it would. That's why I'm thinking SVG. It's got to be SVG.
Someone who's that talented, I mean, you give him a lot of track time, I think he can learn pretty quickly. He did well in the drafting races he was in last year in the Xfinity Series. And then now you get it's not really speed weeks, but you're gonna have practice, you're gonna have qualifying, you're gonna have the duels, all this stuff. So I mean, the man will be racing, just getting a lot more track time. I think that's what this guy needs. Like he's so crazy talented that. Yeah, if he becomes a good drafting racer, is anyone really surprised? And the beauty of this race is you don't even really need to be. We just talked about BJ surviving and just destroying Hendrick's cars in head-to-head matchups. So yeah, I like the pick, man. Going off the wall there. That's the fun thing about this format. Phil, who you got for Trackhouse?
I'm going Ross Chastain. I understand that he's aggressive, but I think that with my last pick of Carson Hocevar, that's sort of building a brand here of aggressiveness. So, that's what I'll do. Chastain, even with that aggressiveness, I mean, 6 top 20s in his last 10 at Daytona, pretty solid. He's got a much better average finish than Suarez, 19.9 at Daytona in the last 10, Suarez 25. I wasn't even considering SVG. He's one that it's not that I don't want him to do well or I don't think he's going to do well. I just need to see, man. Like I need to see how he's going to do full time in this Cup Series. So yeah, Chastain, keep it, from wrecking the field. And I think he'll be, he's his own worst enemy on these tracks. So I'm hoping that he's trying to come into the season and get out of here alive to set up don't want to be digging out of a hole, really, if you're that team. If I'm on that team, trying to talk to him, let's survive and move on.
Well, I'm right there with you. I just typed it in. I'm Ross Chastain as well. Everything you just said, and then you realize last year in drafting tracks, only 5 drivers rode around inside the top 10 at a higher clip than he did. So again, he's there, he's aggressive. So sometimes that can come back and bite you. But in this theme of me trying to take those aggressive drivers and then mix in those ones I think that can survive here too, just trying to have the best of both worlds. I think with this overall roster, I'm going with. So I'll go with one that has more of the stats and less of the finishes, as far as at least how last year went. Give me Chastain. Hopefully he can survive. Now, do you have any Trackhouse bets, either you two?
Nothing. No. I mean, I'm looking at Bubba Wallace over Chastain bet, but I'll have to make that call before I put it out there on the pod. I know that's another head-to-head. But that's one that got my attention. So, like I said, the Bubba ladder.
All right, cool. We have Wallace minus 122, just for whatever it's worth. I mean, you'll see that on the site anyways, but I'll let the users know, or the listeners know. All right, now we get into the fun then. So a wild card pick. This can be a pick from any team that you haven't drafted yet. I'm going to lead this one off. Then we'll go to Phil. Then we'll go to Tino to wrap things up. For my pick here, for my wild card, I'm going to go with our 2024 champion, Joey Logano here. I'd mentioned earlier that I wanted another Penske driver on my team, and it's kind of funny that you guys both went with Blaney. So I have Cindric and Logano. I know we won't be the same here amongst our Penske guys if you pick someone as a wild card here. Cindric is a wild card. So Logano, I think his luck can swing back on these drafting tracks. Again, people that know, I don't have to tell you, he's running up front all the time. Dude's leading laps. He's doing everything he needs to do except for getting these finishes. But he has finished 34% of his Daytona races inside the top 10, running over 35% of his laps inside the top 5 on drafting tracks last year. That's just an insane, stupid number. So the man just has to get, whether it's luck or whether it just, positive regression, whatever you want to call it, or whatever needs to happen. He can finish well at Daytona. He has done it. He just hasn't happened recently. His, wins come at Atlanta or whatever else. So Daytona, I think he can get it back going and give me another aggressive driver to round things out here. For my wild card pick, I really wanted something with a ceiling, someone who can lead laps and win the race. So give me Joey Logano here. Phil, who do you have as your wild card pick?
Well, thought about Logano, but I'm going with another big dog, and it's somebody that you called out earlier, Ryan. It's Chase Elliott for every reason that you said. I know I was taking a little bit more of a risk with Bowman as far as the odds were concerned. Chase is obviously much lower, but 50% hit rate for a top 10 for Chase Elliott in his last 10 Daytona races. I love that. And he is tied for the lead in the series with most lead lap finishes. So, yeah, a driver that theoretically is trying to keep it clean. Just kind of seems like this offseason, I've seen a little bit more of him. Like he was at the Super Bowl, he was at Barstool, like doing a lot. And it just kind of feels like NASCAR fix kind of deal. It'd be perfect for him to start the season off with a dub for them. So, get everything going here. Chase Elliott, I think, is a decent wild card pick.
Yeah, he's a good vibe pick. I feel like last year he was starting to get his groove back too. Kind of passing Byron almost is the second best HMS car. When the year before it seemed like he was a distant third. So I love that there. Tino, who you got here for your wild card pick?
All right, so for my wild card here, branching off of what Phil was saying about Chase Elliott being a vibe, having a good time. Another driver that's been out there in the news because he's winning races, Christopher Bell. He's having the time of his life this offseason, racing dirt again, going around there, beating Kyle Larson. He hadn't been able to do that in his time before with JGR. Now, thank you, Joe Gibbs, is what he said in one of his press conferences there after winning. And to me, I think he's been having fun. The vibes are up. Tough way they ended last season. Maybe coming back for a little revenge. Give me Christopher Bell to win the Daytona 500.
Man, you are on Chris Bell. That's awesome. I love it, dude. We got Chris Bell from Phil and from Tino. I feel a little left out there because I love rooting for C Bell. So
Ring the bell, baby.
yeah, this is gonna be tough. I might have to put a little fun bet on him or something just so I can't get swept here. Awesome show, guys. We try to keep this around an hour. I know we went a little bit over tonight, but hey, first show of the year, shaking the cobwebs out. I really appreciate everyone, listening here. And guys, do you have any final thoughts about the Daytona 500? I know, is there any rituals that you do? You have friends over, family over? What are you guys doing? We're supposed to get plus like 20 plus inches of snow between Thursday and Sunday. So I'll probably, I'll just be stuck inside the house here and then probably have to go out and snow blow afterwards. But I'll definitely be quite a few beers deep snow blowing. So wish me luck there. But
I got a fun
what do you guys?
tradition for the Daytona 500. Yeah, every year I wake up excited for the race to start on Sunday, and then it gets postponed to Monday because of rain. So,
Dude, I tweeted about that earlier. I said, what a troll job here, because you look at the weather and every day is fine except for Sunday.
yeah, so
Insane.
hopefully that tradition breaks this year, but I'm looking forward to it though.
Awesome. Phil, what do you do?
I'm the guy like in my group of friends. I'm trying to get people to, get into it. So every year I usually throw it out there. Anybody wants to come by, we'll, be drinking. I've worked out a deal with my wife every year, like certain races. I'm just drinking all day. I'm sleeping all the next day. So I've kind of cashing in my chips. But yeah, have some buddies over, play some darts, gamble on it. And this year, it's kind of like a come whenever you want kind of deal, leave whenever you want. But decent amount of folks might not be able to make it till later. And looking at the weather, they might catch it. Kind of hoping for maybe a night race. Like if it is going to rain, the nighttime on Sunday is clear, according to AccuWeather. So I would not hate a night race where, I've got off President's Day. So I could get tuned up and be happy about it. So we'll see. But very much looking forward to it. Like I'm sure all you guys are, and see how the season starts, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again. Thank you everyone who tuned in, left comments, everything. We still got comments coming in here. Chastain is the Jameis Winston of NASCAR. Oh, nice.
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see
It's a
that. He
great
does make
analogy.
some head scratching moves from time to time. That's a good comment there. Never doubt Ricky Stenhouse. Love that. What else we got?
Those are the last
Any
few to round
questions?
it out. Brian and Miami Mike in the chat. Those guys kept it hot all throughout the show. I appreciate them tuning in, and everyone else who was watching, maybe weren't in the chat as well. It's great to have you guys there tonight.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I'd like to thank all our partners here, Nuke the House, Keg, Coop, all those guys. Grid Rival, you can sign up, use code Win the Race, get up to $100 back in your first deposit. Out of the Groove with Eric Estep. I'll be on with Eric tomorrow talking some Daytona 500. All his stuff's found at the Daily Downforce. And then Kyle and Brian, the Angler's Pursuit podcast. Make sure you download that. It's a great weekly listen for all things NASCAR. This has been episode 2 of The Draft, the live NASCAR show. Ryan, Tino, Phil, we're out. Thank you for listening, everybody. Good luck.